Hey, what up, Laker fans? D-Mac here. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. The Lakers are desperately trying to pull off an impact trade. They're shopping THT, Dwight, Bazemore, DeAndre Jordan. Could they make a deal for Gary Trent Jr.? More on that in just a second, but quick reminder for all latest Lakers news and rumors, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and if you want to see us post even more Lakers content, smash that like button. And as always, I want your takes down below in the comment section. Today's Lakers 24-8 question of the day. Would you want to see the Lakers trade for Gary Trent Jr., and do you think they'll be able to pull off an impact trade at the deadline? Give me a Y for yes or give me an N for no. And for all latest Lakers news, head over to alllakers.com. So we're 53 games into the season. The Lakers just can't get right. They can't get healthy. They can't stay healthy. They can't win games. Their roster is clearly flawed. Last night, the Lakers, they lose in heartbreak fashion to the Clippers. They take the lead late, but then Reggie Jackson, he hits a shot. The Clippers beat the Lakers. Now the Lakers sit at 25-28, 9th place in the Western Conference with just 29 games to play. So what can the Lakers do to even have a chance this year? Well, the first thing they're going to have to do, it's obvious. They have to get healthy. They need LeBron James back. Look at last night. Carmelo Anthony, he's been rolling lately. He suffers a hamstring. He's day-to-day. And what do you know? You have the LAARP Lakers, and you got a lot of guys injured towards the latter parts of the season. What a big surprise, right? So yes, they have to get healthy, but even if they do, they need to execute a trade by the February 10th NBA trade deadline. And as you probably know by this point, the Lakers are just bereft of assets. What they have is Talen Horton-Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, and a 2027 first-round pick. They have some second-round picks to work with, but that's basically it. But the Lakers are also currently exploring ways to trade DeAndre Jordan, Dwight Howard, and Bazemore. Bleacher Report's Jake Fisher, he appeared on the NBA Chats podcast with Alan Remick, and he offered some really great insight on where the Lakers are at heading into that February 10th trade deadline. He said, listen, the Lakers are obviously not in a great spot right now, and they're looking. They're trying. From DeAndre Jordan to Dwight Howard to the Bazemores of the world to trying to see what this Talen Horton-Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, and first-round pick package can get. They're trying. He would go on to say, I don't know specific other frameworks that have been thrown out there, but the way it's been described to me is they've just been calling teams and saying, hey, Talen Horton-Tucker, a first, and Kendrick Nunn, what can that get us? I think that's really where they're at right now. I don't think they're going to use that to move Russ. That seemed unlikely all along. They're using that pick as a way to upgrade, not as a way to get off Russ's salary. So you hear right there, it almost sounds like the Lakers are just being door-to-door salesmen with THT and the assets they have, trying to upgrade any way they can. Now, we know the targets, Jarami Grant. We've heard Myles Turner in the past, Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, Gary Trent Jr. I don't think any of these players would come with a package surrounding THT. And look, the reality with Talen Horton-Tucker is that around the league, he's just not viewed as an intriguing young player. You saw the report that came out a few days ago where teams viewed him as a marginal asset. Look, I've talked to people around, they say the same exact thing when it comes to THT. If you look at his numbers this season, 9.7 points per game, 3.2 rebounds, 2.5 assists on 41% shooting, and 25.7% from beyond the arc on just under 3 attempts per game. So the reality is THT just isn't that modern NBA player that teams covet. He doesn't shoot the three efficiently. He doesn't stretch the floor. He's a guy that needs to pound the rock to have a chance to be effective. And yes, when he has it going, he can do some nice things. You see that potential. You see why the Lakers were so high on him. But the numbers indicate that he's just not that great of a player at this stage of his career. Then if you look at his contract, he's owed $10.26 million for next season, and he has a player option for just over $11 million for the 23-24 season. So whoever trades for him is going to have to be committed to him for potentially 2 more seasons. Now, hope is hell of a drug, but if you want a little hope right here, I've got some for you. If you remember last season, back in March, it was highly publicized that the Lakers refused to trade Talen Horton-Tucker to the Toronto Raptors for Kyle Lowry. So does that mean the Raptors might still have some interest in Talen Horton-Tucker? You never know. But I think one of the big obstacles there is they have one of the best presidents, one of the best basketball executives in the game running the Toronto Raptors, and that, of course, is Masai Ujiri. Whereas the Lakers, they have GM LeBron James and Kurt Kurt Rambis and some guy that looks like Rob Lowe, that do we even know what he does for the Lakers at this point? So would Masai Ujiri actually let the Lakers fleece him? I think that's a big question. But if they could get a deal done for Gary Trent Jr., to me, that would be the dream scenario at this point. Because I think you really could rule out guys like Jarami Grant or Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield. Myles Turner is a name the Lakers were linked to for a while. He hasn't even played since mid-January after going down with an injury, so I don't see that one happening either. Now, my dream scenario right now would be if the Lakers could find a way to get Gary Trent Jr. That, to me, would be the dream at this point. I think it's unlikely because Gary Trent Jr. is a really good player. Masai Ujiri is a really good executive, and teams just aren't high on THT. But if they could find a way to get Gary Trent Jr., he's a guy that would really help this team. So far this season, he's averaging 18.1 points per game, 2 assists, 2.8 rebounds, 15.5 PER. He's shooting 39.6% from beyond the arc on 8 attempts per game. He's also one of the best in the league when it comes to unguarded catch-and-shoot three-point shots. So he would work well with Russell Westbrook and LeBron James. He's still young. He'd be 25 when he hits free agency. He was due $16 million this season, $17.28 million next year, and $18.56 million as a player option the following season. And we know the Lakers were linked to him early on. Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, he said the Los Angeles Lakers have been doing their due diligence around the league and expressed interest in Raptors guard Gary Trent Jr., according to league sources. One of several players they've checked in on. However, I don't see a deal happening between those two teams at this time, since it would likely have to involve Talen Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn from a salaries perspective. So, hey, even if you have to give up that first-round pick, I would definitely do that, because at this point, with this current roster, I think you have to burn the boats, especially with LeBron James aging the way he is. You're seeing the rumors that he would be potentially willing to leave the Los Angeles Lakers if it meant playing with his son, Bronny James. So if there's any chance the Lakers could get a player of Gary Trent Jr.'s caliber for THT, Kendrick Nunn, and even that first-round pick, I'd be more than happy to do it. Another big concern, though, is, look, the Raptors, they signed him to that deal. Why'd they do that? Because they saw the kind of player he is. They wanted him to be a part of their future. Will they do it? I highly doubt they would. But maybe, just maybe, the Raptors are still high on Talen Horton-Tucker, and maybe they trust their player development program. We know it's one of the best in the league. Maybe they see something in THT, and maybe they want to add him, but something tells me it's going to be very difficult for the Lakers to pull off an impact trade at this deadline due to their lack of assets. But hopefully we'll get some fireworks and they'll find a way to execute a trade. But let me know down below in the comments section, do you think the Lakers will pull off an impact trade? Who do you think they'll trade for? Also, where would Gary Trent Jr. fit as far as your top targets? Because to me, look, a lot of people had him on the back burner because they thought the Lakers could get a Jarami Grant or a Harrison Barnes or a Buddy Hield or some of these bigger players. But look, let's be honest here. Lakers and their fans, they had a false sense of THT's value when the reality is he's not valued very highly around the league. So we have to get real at this point. But let me know down below. My name is D-Mac. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. For all things Laker basketball, all latest Lakers news and rumors, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and if you want to see us post even more Lakers content, smash that like button. And until next time, go Lakers.